said talk to me, damn it, or else I'm gonna throw you in the fire!
You stupid bitch! You filthy... FlyOver State of Fear. Welcome back to FlyOver State of Fear. We're back this week with a really special guest, Jeannine Brice, or as you may know her from the Schmoedown, It's a Wonderful podcast. Morgan hasn't seen it. Jeannine designs the machine, the bee, Jeannine. How's it going? Thank you for coming on. I think that was
going really good.
Intro.
Yeah, I do a lot of stuff. So
no, thanks for joining me. Oddly enough, on Scream's 25th anniversary, to discuss the movie Scream, as we said. So, what's up?
Yeah. Nothing much. Thank you for having me. It's super exciting. I absolutely love this movie. It's one of my favorites. A huge horror turning point for me as a horror fan. So excited to talk about it.
Yeah. So, I guess before we get into the movie and more horror, like, what tell us a bit about yourself and anyone listening if they don't know who you are, and I feel like everyone probably does.
So I'm Jeannine, Jeannine Brice, Jeannine Bean on the socials.
Yeah.
I am a graphic designer. I'm a podcaster. I'm a movie trivia professional competitor. So I compete on the movie trivia Schmoedown in competitive movie trivia as Jeannine the Machine. It's a really fun show. You can find it on YouTube. I also, design some things. So if you're ever in need of some graphic design work, I love doing pop culture kind of geeky art and
it's
nerdy
really
designs,
great
logo
work.
designs. Thank you so much. Just a movie fan. So
yeah, how funny is it? Just as also a graphic designer and I guess a podcaster now, is when you hit that point. I was thinking this the other week how you hit that point where you stop saying I'm a graphic designer, or you start saying I'm a podcaster, right? Like there's a certain point where then you add podcaster into
to
that
list,
description,
to your repertoire. Yes.
And I came to that realization a month or two ago. I was like, oh well, you have 100-something plus of just episodes of things out there. You probably could put it on your profile. No, that's awesome. Yeah. Definitely for the intros, but yeah, your TeePublic is just great stuff on it if that's what you're still using to sell.
I also just started a Big Cartel shop, so it's also g9design.bigcartel.com where I sell art prints. So
awesome. Go check that out. It's really, really good stuff.
You.
So I asked all my guests, and I mean we kind of alluded to it, but what is your horror origin story? And that could be anything you really want it to be. So
it was a bit of a long road. I always was kind of intrigued by horror, but it terrified me. I think it started maybe with the Thriller video. I remember just thinking that was the coolest thing I'd ever seen. But every time I'd watch it or every time I'd hear the song, I would get night terrors. I would get nightmares. It would freak me out. Like it would scare the shit out of me. But I couldn't look away from it every time it was on. Like I'd have to stop and watch it because just the production value and the style of it and the music and everything was just so cool. So that was kind of my introduction to like things that scared me, that intrigued me, but I was a little too afraid to kind of really embrace it. Then I think when I was about 8, my sister had her friend over for a sleepover, and my sister was a little bit older, so I think she was maybe like 12. And they were watching Nightmare on Elm Street, and I wanted to be cool and stay up and watch it with them. So I tried watching that movie, and then I couldn't eat pizza for like a month because it reminded me of Freddy Krueger's face.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. So I think my real kind of embracing of horror started with something as simple as Ghostbusters, because it was this really kind of cool bridge between horror and comedy. So kind of putting those two together and having the kind of laughable elements of it and the fun spectacle of it was a nice bridge for me to kind of
starter.
Was starter like my horror starter pack.
Yeah, starter horror. I use that phrase a lot. It's really important. I mean, the Ghostbusters and like my growing up, I mean, I was similar, like scared, like I was interested but not, and like
Yeah.
until later on. And it's funny you mentioned Freddy Krueger. I mean, Nightmare on Elm Street because I knew that more as like urban legend. I feel
Yeah.
like it wasn't, but it was like kind of, and
Yeah.
um, uh, you know, it serves its purpose. Like I know for us, it was more of like the Are You Afraid of the Dark episodes, right? Like, that
Yes.
was a good, and it was still
Goosebumps.
scary, but like Goosebumps, Starter
Yeah.
Horror, Ghostbusters is like right there. So anyway,
Mhm.
continue. It's so funny to hear. Like I've been telling a lot of guests recently, as more I've been talking, the more people, especially if certain generations have similar paths to
Yeah, to
what
get
they
there.
get there. So
Yeah, I absolutely loved Ghostbusters. That movie, like, just meant a lot to me for so many reasons. Like, just as a kid growing up and loving movies, like hearing my name in a movie for the first time was like the
oh, you can
coolest thing ever. Seeing Ernie Hudson's character was just like a big point of representation for me.
sure.
Like seeing, oh gosh, a guy who looks like me can
How,
do these fun things and be in these part of these adventures, so I could maybe, be a part of that story as well.
absolutely.
You
How
know.
how different do you think it would have been though if it was like we would be considering Ghostbusters an Eddie Murphy movie right now?
I
It was
know, if he
originally
he had
cast.
actually, yeah,
Yeah.
like, I'm so curious to see how different that would be because 'cause I'm sure, Winston would have had a much bigger
It,
role.
I have a feeling we'd be if we were still sitting down saying I think you'd be like the Eddie Murphy movie Ghostbusters and the rest of
Right?
the cast because he so but I love Ernie Hudson in that role. It was Winston. I can't think of him as not as Winston.
Right?
Anyway, just that was that like that's been making the rounds recently because I guess the movie's
Yes.
out. That
A
piece of trivia.
Yeah, that was supposed to be Eddie Murphy, but, yeah, just having that point of representation and, hearing my name in a movie, that kind of grounded me to that movie and just kind of having the scary elements in there blended with kind of the fun of it was a really good kind of connection to ease my way into kind of more horror things because it was always something that intrigued me, but I just wasn't quite ready to
Mhm.
go all the way. And then Scream, I saw it for the first time at a slumber party, my 14th birthday slumber party. We rented it because my friend like would not shut up about it. She's like, "Oh my gosh, you have to see this movie. It's so good. Oh my gosh, and this guy, he's so hot." And like, "Oh my gosh."
Which one would that
um,
be?
a Billy Loomis.
Okay, I wasn't. I couldn't. I am not sure.
Yeah. So,
My first
um,
note of, I mean, we're not there yet, I guess, but it doesn't matter. Is of Billy Loomis is like, wow, Wes Craven really was going for another Johnny Depp.
Johnny Depp. Yes.
Looks just like him at
Like
that age.
him. Yes.
Um,
But both him and Matthew Lillard were like, equal hotness
sure.
at 14. So yeah, I watched it at a slumber party, and I just
I
remember
couldn't
just being so
couldn't tell
entranced.
because I wasn't sure. Going to bring this up now. If like you grew into thinking Matthew Lillard was like hot and and like attractive, or like you knew like because like I feel like it's one of those actors, right? Like you're like
Yeah,
when I was 14, no, but now that I'm 30 plus,
yeah, I
Matthew
see it.
Lillard. So
No, I saw it then. I saw it
okay,
then. Yeah.
my weirdly enough, my TikTok is like I watched like one or two videos of Matthew Lillard. I'm on Matthew Lillard TikTok
Okay.
of people
Yes.
just sharing like videos of him at conventions and things.
Yeah. Hmm.
And it's a lane of TikTok, and
Yeah.
I can't get out of it. Like, um, so that's also yeah. I guess I could see Scream, especially about 14 years old, and you watched it, or 13 or so when you.
Yeah, so that was kind of my main introduction, and then from there, I kind of became obsessed with, like, 90s teen horror. So,
Love.
like, disturbing behavior and, urban legends and, Halloween H2O, like, that was my vibe of horror movies that I
I
liked,
for the
Final Destination and
I mean I really love 90s horror because I think it's we just talked about starter horror, and I think it's the
Yes.
most watchable in the sense
Yeah.
like no one ever really seems in danger, and it's pop like they're some good movies, but they're very like consumable. Like my wife doesn't watch horror movies, and she's been able to consume like a Scream and an Urban Legends and things like
Yeah.
that. Just I think the worst one, and I don't know if this is offensive or not, um, is because I didn't think it held up at all. Is I think I know what you did last summer. It was so bad. I watched it like a year or two ago.
I still love it, but I can completely acknowledge
I
that
couldn't.
it's really bad.
Couldn't even get in the charm of it.
Yeah.
But all those movies are, and I wish I grabbed the list here. Are Scream. I mean, they're all because of
Yeah.
Scream.
Well, I know what he did last summer. Actually, I think Kevin Williamson wrote before Scream. It just didn't. It just got released after. Like it got picked up after the popularity of Scream.
Well, there's actually one. I'm glad you mentioned Kevin Williamson, who wrote, for people who are listening, who wrote Scream and the concept of Scream. And one thing I was reading in some trivia today, or like those tidbits and whatnot. I think it's right on his wiki. And this is a forgotten movie of that time. Is Teaching. He wrote Teaching Mrs. Tingle.
Tingle, yeah.
And it was like the first script he wrote, and then like sold, and then like it wouldn't sell or something, and got made like years later. It definitely got made off of his Scream name.
It actually it actually uses lines from Scream in it.
Does it? Okay. I want to revisit it. I remember when it was out. It had to have been, because
I love that movie.
I hadn't seen it.
Mirren is great.
I remember renting it and probably being 8 or 10, and like my older brother and cousins or whatever watching it.
Yeah.
I gotta revisit it, and I had to have known about it more, also not from the rental, but just like it had to have either been heavily advertised or on like a coming attraction.
Yeah.
Tape. Because read it today and it was like, oh shit, I gotta rewatch that movie. Anyway.
Yeah. We actually covered it on Morgan Hasn't Seen when we did like a month of teacher movies.
Oh, I gotta check that episode out afterwards.
Yeah, and I think it was originally called Killing Mrs. Tingle, and then they kind of got revised.
That makes sense.
Yeah, and there's a scene with Molly Ringwald. She's like subbing for a class, and she's talking about like a literary character, and she like says this character was a slutbag whore who flashed her shit all over town.
No, you love when teachers say that?
Yeah, so it was like word for word that line from Scream.
Yes. I remember it as the movie with the Seventh Heaven kid in it. Yeah. I think that's how I would have described it.
And also, I was a huge Dawson's Creek fan, so anything Kevin Williamson did, I was like,
was he a Kevin? Right there. He wrote on Dawson's Creek?
He created Dawson's Creek.
Now,
so that's why Katie Holmes was also in that movie.
Gotcha. Now, did Kevin Williamson get Dawson's Creek because of Scream?
I think I want to say Dawson's Creek was first, because Dawson's Creek started in. Oh no, Scream was first. Then I think he got Dawson's Creek because Dawson's Creek was in '98.
Okay, because that's what it.
Yeah.
That's what it sounded like. From like just research and crap is that he was like, oh, I was struggling and ready to quit screenwriting and couldn't sell a script, and then we sold Scream. Yeah. So if anyone hadn't figured out, because we've said it a billion times, we're talking about Scream, and real quick, directed by Wes Craven, who, I mean, really gives this movie its life.
Yes.
And I like to sometimes to read the synopsis, but this is literally one line. I think it's from the Wikipedia or the blurb. A year after the murder of her mother, a teenage girl is terrorized by a new killer who targets the girl and her friends by using horror films as part of a deadly game. That's kind of not what the movie is.
No, that game part of it aspect is really only in that first scene, and then you kind of don't get it anywhere else.
And it was interesting because I was looking up like synopsises in like where you'd find them, right? Like Letterboxd.
Yeah.
Or it would do that. It would be like iconic horror from Wes Craven. Like it doesn't give me a synopsis. So that's what we work with. But yeah, game. I don't consider that this movie a game. But before this, I mean, this movie is itself an icon, right? Like growing up after this, you couldn't. To this day, they sell this ghost face mask, and I'm gonna just guess majority of the children wearing it don't know what it's from, even from today.
Right?
Right. It's like, the Halloween costume.
Yeah.
I remember the ones with the blood. You could pump the blood.
Oh yeah, the blood through it. Yeah.
Apparently these sell for a lot of money.
Really?
The Scream, especially the original Ghost, not like the ghost face masks, especially the old costumes.
Yeah.
I'm sure I saw a TikTok about that or something, but I think they go through like they sell. So we start off with a cold open. They get the title card, but it's a cold open of this house, and we get Drew Barrymore at the time, who's the biggest name. And what I found really interesting about this movie is, she was in all the advertising. Do you remember the advertising at all? You're a bit older than me, and I don't know, if you would remember the ads, and was she featured that much?
I don't really remember any ads. I remember the posters and things like that, and her just being really prominent on the posters, but I don't remember any like trailers or anything like that.
Okay. You start the movie off with her big name, Drew Barrymore name, and she gets a call. She's cooking popcorn, and it's what's your favorite scary movie? And she answers the phone a little too much for someone who's just like this intro. I don't know if you I've seen this movie a ton.
Yeah.
There's a bit of voyeurism from her of this. Like, she's into it. She's okay,
she
she's
likes the
flirting back.
flirtation of this guy. And Roger Jackson is doing an amazing job because he's trying to sound kind of sexy, kind of mysterious, kind of fun and flirty. And then that switch that he's able to do. So yeah, I think, if a cute stranger was kind of calling you and talking to you about things that you liked, you might kind of be into
maybe.
it. Yeah, if you're that kind of teenage girl who maybe likes that kind of attention, maybe.
Yeah, we go right into it, and it gets there's that 2 minutes of levity of the flirtation, and then it goes hard horror, and I actually think that beginning scene is the most gruesome.
Yeah.
Of any of the whole movie doesn't kind of meet the brutality of that intro.
At that first moment, yeah.
And that's what happened. So they wanted to do what Psycho did, but instead of Psycho waiting 25 minutes or something like that to kill the star at the time, Janet Leigh, we killed Drew Barrymore, 8 minutes in?
Yeah,
not even
10 minutes maybe.
Yeah. And she's running around, and it's this really it's a really great scene of just this cat and mouse game of favorite scary movie, and and he knows all about her, that boyfriend, and then the parents home, and she's screaming, and
she can't scream, and they're so close, they're right there. That's so tough to watch. Yeah.
I do love once again, I do love how she's my boyfriend's big and he's gonna kick your ass. Well, he doesn't feel
he's big
that.
And he plays football and he's gonna kick the shit out of you.
The hard part with this movie, with Scream, also, is that Scary Movie came out also.
Yes.
And that sometimes I feel when talking about it, I'm talking about the parody of it.
Yeah, right. He's big and he's black and he'll kick your ass.
Yeah. And it's funny that this movie was supposed to be called Scary Movie too, but for me, I definitely saw Scary Movie before I saw Scream.
Yeah.
There's another joke we got to get to that's reference to Scary Movie that still think it's one of the best written jokes in a fucking movie of all time. But so that, it's just a cold open. It's iconic cinema. We're on the 20th anniversary of one recording today. This will be released closer to when I think the remake comes out. Yeah, not remake, but today, Drew Barrymore is always playing it up that she was in this movie and tweeting it. And I almost feel bad for someone who's maybe 12 or 13 or younger and is I want to watch Scream.
Yeah.
Oh no, it's real. We know, we're gonna tell you what happens.
Yeah. And I think that was Drew Barrymore's idea. I want to say they originally wanted her for Sydney or a bigger role or Tatum or somebody, but she's no, have me do this. That'll kind of subvert expectations. And she was really down to kind of be killed off right away because she knew that's what it would kind of set up for the rest of the movie. And just kind of throw everybody off. It's
so good. In that regard. And the only fun fact about this scene I have is that Drew Barrymore accidentally called 911 when we were doing scene, and I think they answered too, and they're
what's going on? Yeah.
It must be terrifying.
Yeah.
Right away. But and then recently Drew Barrymore revealed, I think on her show, that caller ID like tripled in sales
after this movie. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so but then so she gets murdered and they do the murder, and then we kind of just fast forward to what I would say like your 90s introed kids, but
Yeah.
and you meet your gang of of high schoolers, of 35-year-olds.
Yeah.
And I'm just gonna call them all by their names. Like you have Nev Campbell, we have God, we
Skeet
have
Ulrich.
Ulrich, we have um Stu, which
Matthew
is
Lillard.
Matthew Lillard, Jamie
Mhm.
Kennedy, and God, why am I blanking?
Rose
on her name?
McGowan.
And Rose McGowan, and that's like
Courtney Cox.
Courtney Cox, and that's fuck, what's his name? Courtney Cox's cousin, husband, David Arquette.
David Arquette, yeah.
Yeah, and that's our group, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we introduced them, and then this is the joke that I couldn't watch and any watch since Scary Movie collab. When we get the introduction of all the TV cameras,
yeah,
and I think it's one of the best jokes when it's like what's the black TV station,
yeah.
White folks die,
yeah.
we get the hell out of here, and it's such a well-written joke that it's so I can't help but think that's going to be cut into the intro scream because it's shot for shot. And it's I just that but we do in the real movie get the introduction of Courtney Cox, who's like a tabloid reporter. I guess I don't know. I don't even know who she was supposed to be of that time. Like just an investigative trash journalist.
Yeah, like I don't know who she'd be comparable to.
Yeah. Like today would be like a TMZ reporter.
Yeah. Maybe
But
like a Brice, but not as
political.
Yeah.
Yeah. So introduce her, and like what I really like about this movie, we kind of immediately they do a lot of that every character is really fleshed out, right?
Yeah.
So we get a lot of background information about Sydney and her mother.
Yeah, what happened, yeah.
Happened. Oh, we do get set up that her father is going out of town for the weekend. I think that's important. Really the forgotten character of this movie. Now, I don't think we've spent a lot of time talking about Wes Craven yet, but so Wes Craven directed this movie.
Yes. He definitely defined like 3 different decades of horror.
Oh, shit, yeah. I mean,
yeah.
And the big one is, so he did Wes Craven of Nightmare on Elm Street, Freddy Krueger. Really did that movie and then just wanted to make interesting movies and hated kind of what he made as a genre.
Yeah.
From our understanding of what he said in interviews and all that. So he had just made New Nightmare, which is my favorite Nightmare on Elm Street. Which, if you watch New Nightmare and then watch Scream, they have the same working
kind of vibe of very meta and like looking into itself and calling things out and being very aware of the tropes and
do scary movies cause violence? I feel like this was like Wes Craven's big topic at hand in this little year stretch. But one thing I noticed this time watching is, so if you remember Nightmare on Elm Street, the parents are all really involved in everything that's going on.
Yeah.
Scream, they are nowhere.
Nowhere. They're absent,
I just thought that was really interesting.
Which also, it took me years to notice that Tatum and Dewey's mom is actually played by the mom from Gremlins. So
holy shit.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. So we meet our children, our teens.
Yeah.
And do we at this point meet, when we meet Sydney, is this, it's when Skeet Ulrich's sneaking in her room.
Yes.
And they have this really corny conversation of like The Exorcist
about PG-13, and they feel like their relationship is edited for television, and he wants to get a little more,
Have you ever had a conversation like that?
No. Which Kevin Williamson, if you watch Dawson's Creek, like they talk very eloquent. They use big words. They use like these $10 words, and people kind of criticize the show for making kids talk how like teenagers normally wouldn't talk.
Mm-hmm.
But kind of his reasoning was always that like he's trying to compliment teenagers for, to show that, that they can use words like that and it can make sense and have conversations and they can elevate the kind of conversations they have. So like him kind of using that kind of dialogue for teens, I think it made me understand it more being a fan of Dawson's Creek and kind of seeing his whole kind of feel on how he writes a teenager, how he wants to kind of compliment their intelligence in that way.
Well, I definitely noticed, but did make a note of it though, that they are talking that way, but like you catch up to it so quickly that everything makes sense and is realistic in the world that they painted for us.
Yeah.
Like, I think, if we put that dialogue in, a John Hughes movie, it's not going to work, right?
No.
It's more of like, well, I guess it's not that modern anymore. It's more of like how they speak in Juno, right? You're like, kids don't fucking talk like that.
Right?
Like, come on, Diablo Cody. But like, let's aim to the same thing, but it works within the world we're in.
Exactly.
Now, that scene, and why I want to just make sure we want to talk about that scene is, from a storytelling perspective, like an editing perspective, I'm sure you've seen this movie so many times.
Yeah.
This is the first time I noticed this. Is they tell us who the killer? He tells us he's the killer immediately. By the way, the spoil, like, we're not doing any reveals here. They tell us Skeet Ulrich is this killer immediately through the song "Don't Fear the Reaper."
Yeah, Fear the Reaper. Yeah.
Like, and I was like, shit. Like, I know that's on purpose, and it's a rendition.
Yeah. Because for a long time, like, it took me, I didn't realize that was what the cover was.
Yeah. It took me today to, like, note taking to, like, be like, oh
shoot.
They're telling us immediately. Yeah. And then, like, jump around later is we talk about, how, like, Randy's the one, Jamie Kenney's the one obsessed with movies. But then if you look, Skeet Ulrich is the only talking about movies. Every time talks.
Everything is a reference to a movie.
Like, so yeah, those were I guess because we're note taking, or I don't know, I was note taking and I was like, movie.
Yeah.
But what Scream also does, culturally for us though, which is really cool, is it's hard to watch horror movies particularly the same way after, because now, like, did you watch Midnight Mass at all?
Yes.
Okay, so watching Midnight Mass, light spoiler for anyone who watched Midnight Mass, like, fast forward 10 seconds. Watching that whole movie or that show, I was like, why isn't anyone just saying, shit, that's a vampire?
Yeah.
Like, it's not even pop culture. It's just like, you want in your movies, I think,
people to know these things, to be aware of them.
Yeah. Yes. Like, I love when movies do that tastefully though. When they're like,
yes. Well, because like you talk about this world that has been set up in Scream and how these characters can talk like that, because we know we're in a world where they are aware of the Friday the 13th and the Nightmare on Elm Streets, and they're aware of these movies and these tropes and these characters. So in this world, they can do certain things that you wouldn't really see in other movies, because we've been set up to know that these characters are fully aware of all of these tropes and things. So
yeah, absolutely. So so we meet our cast, and I mean, they all kind of have like different personalities, but honestly, I don't think they do as much of a defining each as like the previous horror genres, right? Because that's what they're playing on. Like, they haven't said like, this is the slut, this isn't the jock, this isn't it just kind of, there's your teens. They all hang out. They're all a little different.
Yeah.
I mean, first, they're all kind of, a little too casual that a classmate just was gutted and murdered. That all of them. But we have Sydney, and they do really give us this background of what's going on with her life without telling us what's going on with her life last year. So who was listening, she was the key witness in her mother's rape and murder.
Yeah.
And she sent Cotton Weir to jail.
Mm-hmm.
and she had a run-ins with Gail Weathers from Top
Yeah,
Line
who was
Story.
spinning this story and saying Cotton is innocent and she wrongly accused him, and yeah.
And then but there's these killings going on, and right now it's all kind of led, like, I think in the world where it's all kind of like, oh, this is what kind of happened, this is what happened. They're
Yeah.
interviewing students, and then I love how the casting of Henry Winkler as like a mean principal.
Yeah.
And it's weird, if you look on IMDb, he's uncredited too, and he's like a major role to be uncredited.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah. I was like, why?
Yeah, he's like a whole plot point.
They actually added his kill in because I think the note for one of the first studio notes was like, we need more deaths.
Oh wow. And that kind of played into the plot. Like they worked that into the plot. Like
Yeah.
his death was a reason for everyone to leave the party so that the killer could kind of do his thing.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
If I got
and,
I think I got that trivia right.
If you watch Scream 4, there's actually a bust of him in the hallway in the school.
You're right.
Yeah. So they actually honored him.
I like Scream. I like Scream 4. It's grown on me over the years more than it had at the first.
Yeah, first viewing.
So do that, and I'm jumping around here, but so we don't kill the principal yet. There's still some more murders that happen in between there, kind of.
Yeah.
Not murders, but Ghostface pops up
and scares Sydney's. Sydney that same night.
And we see who else but Billy Loomis is there, and just the cops deem like he's on the way. So my first question of this is, and this is where I'm going to start plot. I love this movie, but I'm going to start poking a little bit at it. Is if their plan was just to like fuck with Sydney and go all these ways, it seems like their plan was more of just to kill her and then keep killing, because I feel like they were trying to kill her that night.
Yeah, instead of mess with her. So I don't know, Billy showing up there to kind of console her, like how does that play into them ultimately just killing her that night?
Yeah, there's a lot of opportunities, and the great thing about the script and Scream and the way it is it's the first time in these slashers, I mean, that I'm aware of, or that are popular, we see the killer, if you don't know who it is goofy.
Yeah.
Is like fumbling and tripping.
Or
and
doofy.
Or doofy, Officer Doofy. And it's a little, I guess you get a little of that in Halloween. Right? This movie's heavily influenced by Halloween.
Yeah.
I mean, Tatum, Rose McGowan's is named Tatum for Tatum O'Neal. Skeet Ulrich's name is fucking Billy Loomis.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's more. And the movie's playing in the background of the final scene.
Yeah.
But so we're like that. Yeah, that's a weird scene to me.
So I like to feel like maybe they were not trying to kill her and they were just trying to mess with her because they want her to kind of see all the killing happening around her and then kind of save her for last.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I reconciled it in my mind, because I've had that same thought that like, why didn't they just kill her right then? Obviously that's their motive. But when you get to the point where Billy is trying to sleep with her and then he kind of calls her out on like sleeping with a psychopath and all of that, I think they really just want to kind of mess with her head.
Yeah.
Because she's kind of the main target of his pain. So I think it made more sense to him to like mess with her and kill kind of people around her first and leave her for last, so she could kind of see the product of,
Oh, no, I completely agree with you. From a psychopath standpoint, it makes sense, especially like we get that and they say, no, I'm innocent, the cops told me this, and but we're coming up a year on her mother's death, and this is like, she should have left him here and there. This man is gaslighting the movie.
Yeah.
Because he goes, why aren't you, it's been a year, get over it.
I know.
It's like, my parents are divorced. Like, what the
I like how they played that scene in the spoof version of the movie with Luke Wilson and in Scream 2.
Yes.
And they played that clip. Yeah.
It took me a minute. And Stab.
Yeah.
Yeah. That is like it. right then and there, she'd be like, "All right, I'm done. I'm going home.
Right?
We're
Like,
not,
that
we're
is
not,
not even comparable.
we're not getting together." Um, that does happen, and then like correct me if I'm wrong. Then kind of we just have some movie. I feel like happen, right? Character interactions, some
Mm,
movie.
yeah.
But in the I wish I not I don't wish murders happened in my high school, but I wish the way they said, it's no school, everyone go home happened. Just
Yeah,
loudspeaker,
curfew.
go
Yeah.
home, curfew. And my favorite, great thing about it is they do the perfect thing. They have a party
Yeah.
with kids not listening to curfew as I would have in high school, not listening to
Yeah.
curfew,
Right.
and drinking beer and not in red fucking Solo cups.
Exactly.
Just, I get it. It's an easy way to get past censors today. That's why you
Yeah, to
like
not
that
have
stuff.
labels of things. Yeah.
But so they're hanging, and fucking Randy decides let's put on a horror movie. Let's put on Halloween and everyone watch
Yeah.
Halloween. This I definitely skipped a lot of this movie. Um, so please,
Right to the heart.
anything in here you need to add?
I think just more fleshing out of her relationship with Gail, her punching her in the face, and
Yes, that's
um, Gail just trying to get this story. Tatum kind of revealing more of her mother's secrets, her kind of being honest with her and telling her, it wasn't just Cotton, like there were more stories about your mom being with other men. So then we're kind of planted with these seeds of doubt that, like, maybe agreeing with Gail, like maybe Cotton is innocent, that killer is still out there. So I love the like subtle way that they're kind of peppering in more plot things so that we're kind of questioning Sydney.
sure. And
Yeah.
I love how I love how also the scene, it sucks, but the scene that Sydney does have more of a realization and no one's on her side of those girls
Yeah.
in the bathroom talking about her.
Oh, yeah.
It's like it's tragic. Like it's like
Yeah.
you like me trying to sell Scream to you or someone has seen it. Like it's a fun horror movie, but
Yeah.
there's a lot of fucking tragedy in it.
Yeah.
It's not kids go to a high school party and get killed.
Yeah.
Or as our description says, they play a deadly game as if it's
Yeah, that literally happens in the first 10 minutes, and that game part of it doesn't even happen like the rest of the movie.
but so
Like taking her trauma and saying she's using it for attention. Like, that's
that's
got to be hard to hear.
yeah. And then like yeah, and in a bad movie she would have like busted out the door and been like, oops, gotta like wash my hands.
Yeah.
Um, but you're right, in that time stretch between like Billy, the house to the party, we just learn everything about it, and then some
Yeah.
doubts. And then the other thing going on is Gail and Dewey, Rose McGowan's brother, are he's the deputy, and Gail's using him to get information in a
Yeah.
flirtatious way.
Yeah.
And then they're kind of on the case together.
Yeah.
And I want to start a campaign. Justice for Kenny, the cameraman.
I know, because he literally saved her life. Like,
Yeah.
in his dying breath, he pointed a way out for her to go. Like, I don't think a
Like,
lot of people notice that.
back door.
And yeah, backdoor. And he saved her. But he gets like shit on this whole movie.
Him,
He gets fat shamed by Gail. Like,
just no repercussion. No one's up. Never gets.
yeah.
Never. I think he gets like a. I think he gets a shout out in like Scream 2 as like my cameraman died past like almost in joke.
Yeah. Well, even like her cameraman kind of has that like black news team vibe when he's like, no, I'm black, getting out of here. And he like actually leaves.
I told you it's one of the best jokes written in movie
Yeah.
history. But and they should have let the Wayans brothers do like the rest of that fucking series.
Right?
But that's a
Right?
different
Yeah.
topic. But yeah, so
Justice for Kenny.
so Justice for Kenny is a campaign I want to start, and also though I know this isn't the movie and the franchise, but like this franchise really just loses care or sight of our first deaths of Drew Barrymore and her boyfriend.
Yeah.
Like, it's these deaths that happen.
And they're the most gruesome, like, gutted, and you
Yeah.
see it, and,
There's
like, we kind of just forget about it.
and I still think there's clearly a purpose between it, regardless of that, like, one of them dated at one point.
Yeah.
But justice for Kenny. That's where.
Yes. Yes.
So, but yeah. So through this, we do learn Gail Weathers, played by Courtney Cox, who I guess at the time, you know, she petitioned for the role of this because she was just like, I want to be shown that I could be a bitch.
Yeah,
Like,
and break out of my Monica kind of
yeah, I guess really bothered of it being
character.
Monica.
Yeah.
This is like height of Friends too.
Yeah.
Like, I like how if we're looking at the Friends, like, has her horror movie, but it's clearly pre-Friends, and she's not like proud of it.
Yeah, Leprechaun, right?
Yeah, yeah, Leprechaun. And Courtney Cox was like, I'm gonna go do one of these horror movies.
Yes.
Um, so, um, so yeah, where are we? I am looking at the things. Oh, that's all casting. That's why I've been.
So yeah, we get to the party
We get to
and
the party, and like I said, it's what do you say? There's over 20, 25 people at this party.
yeah. And definitely I think a big part of Stu and Billy's ultimate plan is to kind of make this big distraction, um, and get people there that they want there. So yeah, there's definitely
Mhm.
a set game
Yeah,
with this party.
and in the coolest cop ever, and Dewey just says, "Yeah, like, no, we're here. We're just monitoring outside. I don't care what you're doing."
Yeah.
Um, and Gail plants a camera in there, but it's on a 30-second delay,
Second delay.
which
Yeah.
I think gives us a real that we were talking about Kenny and the cameraman gives us a really good, like, the tension
Yeah. Hmm.
of a scene. Don't they kind of replay that scene again in like Scream 4 though with the live stream?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so. They do something similar like that. Yeah.
And so, this is Sydney, like, I guess just because her recently on Flower actually picked what's her Tatum as one of the worst friends in movie history. And she is, because
Yeah.
she's also like, get over it. Get
Yeah.
over your mother dead. We're
Like
gonna
it's been a
party.
year. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Come to
tomorrow.
this party. She's like, yeah.
So, and this is when uh we get Tatum, we get her death, which is the most movie death in the movie, and it's the silliest and funnest because she dies by car garage.
Right?
I feel like I think MythBusters did this death, and they're like, is this not possible?
Yeah. Like it wouldn't be able to lift her. Like
She's crawling
that
through the
door was.
dog door, and she basically gets crushed, and she has some really good play with one of the killers. And I know
Yeah.
Jeannine and I have said the killer's names multiple times, but the characters still do not know who they
Yeah.
are. And so she's like, I'll play.
Yeah.
Oh, I want to be alive for the sequel. And
Yeah.
then she kind of realizes, oh fuck,
This is really some serious shit. Which makes me hate the new Halloween even more because
you and
look
me
how,
both.
like look how awesome, like Drew Barrymore, she fought back.
Uh
Like
huh.
she knew what she was in for, but she fought back. Tatum fights her ass off, throwing bottles, calling him
Yeah,
a fucker. Like
like,
she
he
fights
falls, he
for her
gets hit
life.
by the
Yeah, she like
fridge door.
yeah, she beats the shit out of him. So at least she tries. So if she dies in an effort, like you respect that. You respect that death, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely a really good death. Like obviously that would never happen in reality, but in this world that
No,
we're
it's
in,
good. It's a fun.
it's a really fun
It's a
death.
fun death. It's a good scene, and I think you called out something really important. Is and Nancy has this. A nightmare is
Yeah.
Wes Craven has made I believe the best final girls in films.
Yeah.
They're all usually really smart,
Yeah.
um, and not even the final girls. They all, for the most part,
Fight.
back, and they're not just sitting ducks.
Yeah.
Um, Even in my last episode I had, we talked about the movie Disturbia, And I talked about how like the girl in that movie
Yeah.
in it's more of like it's a little annoying. She's a little like that perfect chick who's like the manic pixie dream girl. But my
Yeah.
guest pointed out at least she fights back and has like a spark to her at some point. And I'm
Yeah,
like,
and
that's
she was
yeah,
trying to be involved and trying to like, yeah.
yeah.
She's not waiting to be rescued really. She's in there. Yeah.
And same with here. You have Rose
Yeah.
McGowan. She's fighting back. Doesn't work out for her.
No.
And that's the one I'm like, man, did they? No, they left her. He left her
Yeah,
in the
she's
girl.
hanging. So kind of in the final girl circuit where
Yeah,
she's finding all the bodies. Yeah, she sees Tatum
I
there.
love a good body maze. I could call
Right?
it body mazes on this.
Yeah.
Um, where, but I'm always surprised how no one of the other guys saw the just body hanging on the
On the garage
on the
door when they
door.
all kind of ran off to go see Principal Himbry hanging from the goalpost. Yeah.
Yeah. Also, I don't know if I'd want to go see any dead body hanging,
Right?
especially like my principal, even if I didn't like him.
Yeah, like I think it's like the two guys who he suspended or like he expelled leading the charge.
Eh,
They were the most excited, but still like
it's
so
it's movie.
twisted.
It's
Yeah.
twisted. Yeah,
Yeah.
everyone's a killer in this movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned the hatred of Halloween Kills. Yeah, no one likes that. Everyone listening is terrible.
Yeah, like the elite have those people at least try to fight. Like, okay, but they just sat there and like
It's just bad. Oh,
it's just painful.
John Wick of Halloween's. Speaking of Halloween though, I love this ending scene though.
Yes.
With Randy, he gives us the rules, which then are
Yes.
used everywhere, where it's never say I'm going to be right back.
Yeah.
Get a great Matthew Lillard making fun of him in that.
Yeah. Don't drink or do drugs.
Don't drink or do drugs.
Can't have sex.
Can't have sex. And I think that's the only rules we get.
Yeah.
And they are not wrong.
No. It's pretty typical to most
and what's
horror. Yeah.
so great about this is the use of the John Carpenter score.
Yeah, it scores this movie.
Being used as just the background movie to build our tension and like I am aware that it's playing on Scream, but I'm also like this is now part of Scream and it's really
Like I hear that music and sometimes I think of Scream. That like it kind of scored that scene and like Jamie saying don't turn around Jamie and then he's Jamie.
Yeah. Oh, and this scene, I think this scene role particularly, it gave Jamie Kennedy his career.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm in the camp it was a mistake to kill him off.
I know.
But I do have a note here that we are the Randys of the world.
Yeah.
Anyone who's on a movie podcast is a Randy of the world.
Yes.
But and I do kind of this is a nice they do a good job also of making him like wanting to date Sydney.
Yeah.
But not making it creepy. Like in some movies
No.
the horny friend comes off creepy.
Yeah, but he's very kind of off to the side and just like, pining in the distance.
He's a normal high schooler.
Yeah. Has his crush from afar.
Yes. And then Billy comes over and him and Sydney, they have another one of their only talking in movie references, or a porno, they have sex.
Yes, and he's bringing up movies still. He's talking about Silence of the Lambs and like all of these different things. Yeah, he's still bringing up horror movies.
Always. So, I mean, it's like I said, like it. Next time if someone's listening, you watch it. Like just watch Skeet Ulrich only.
Yeah,
it's squirrely, and it's just movie. It's movie references. It's So they have sex, and at this time, though, kills are going on downstairs.
Yeah.
Or I guess the party's going on downstairs, and we just have Tatum's death.
Yeah.
But
so then Randy gets the call about Principal Himbry being hung from the goalpost, and so that's when kind of everybody leaves the party. So then it's just Jamie Kennedy there and the killer we kind of see, and that's what kicks off kind of Kenny, and Sydney. That kind of is where her circuit starts after she has sex with Billy.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Billy, yeah, and then we kind of just get this Ghostface chase down. Where he runs out, and then
because Billy supposedly, kills Billy.
Yeah, to save, and they're really good at on the fly special effects. Let me tell you that.
Right?
It was like corn syrup they used in Harry. Yeah. And I you know what? I've been watching a lot of Brian De Palma recently, just side tangent. And earlier, maybe that's why earlier I mentioned the word of this movie has a little voyeurism to it. Maybe it was also that because that's all Brian De Palma movies.
It does, yeah.
Watching from afar, and I feel like this has a bit of that in it too.
Yeah.
So we have that, and I think I spent enough time talking about Kenny, but we do get Kenny's death, and she runs out. And it's really great scene though because you see Ghostface behind Randy, and you're like, oh shit,
turn around, yeah.
And I know as an audience member, I did forget for a second that it is a 30-second.
30 second delay, yeah. By the time they reintroduce that, you have forgotten. Yeah.
So we fast forward a little bit, and Kenny's throat slit. Gail's in the house, and Dewey, they're kind of around.
I think they had just found the car.
The car, right.
So they're kind of headed back. They find Sydney's dad's car abandoned up the street.
Yes, and then
I think they're headed back. Yeah.
One thing I've failed to bring up is no one could get in touch with Cindy's father, which is maybe it's just 2021 brain. I'm like, wow, that should be priority number one of all of them, or at least
well, they have just been kind of looking for him, but now because they can't find him, they've automatically made him a suspect.
And I'll bring him up in a minute, but he's the series as a whole says we have no interest in him.
Yeah.
So Sydney, and then they start fighting Ghostface. That's what happens. And then
she starts running around, hiding from him, running through the house, running outside. Yeah, Kenny kind of points the way for her to go out. Oh, the scene with her in the cop car is terrifying.
Oh, when she thinks she's safe and he has
the keys. Yeah, he has the keys. So he's unlocking all the doors around her, and she's trying to lock them as he's unlocking them, and then the back just opens up. Yeah, that scene was super tense.
Yeah, this is I can't even say. I was gonna say this is Wes Craven's one of his masterpieces because there's no wasted scene.
Yeah.
This is one of those movies where I'm always surprised how long it is because in my mind, I think it's a short movie.
Yeah.
Do that, and then we get to one of the greatest kitchen scenes of all time. They're in the kitchen, and we get a reveal that Stu. Am I getting the names wrong? God, I'm the worst.
Yeah.
That Stu is revealed the killer, but guess who? Also, Billy's the killer too, because he's
alive. Billy reveals himself first, so she runs to Stu. She runs to Stu's arms, and then he pulls out the voice changer, and she realizes he's in on it too. Yeah. So now she's like both of them. And I think at this point too, she was walking back towards the house, and that's when Dewey stumbles out with the knife in his back. So Dewey has been taken out. Yeah.
At first, she doesn't. She sees Stu and Randy, and she's like, "I'm not letting you in the house."
Oh yeah, she's like, "Fuck you both."
And honestly, great. It makes you're terrified. You don't know who to trust.
Yeah.
But then we get the reveal of they're both the killers. Not only that, they're possible lovers.
Yeah, that's been an underlying theory.
That's been more and more of the
years. Recent years, yeah.
And
I want that for them. Or at least that, like, Stu's motive, because Stu never really admits to a true motive. He just kind of jokingly says peer pressure. So I think a lot of people think Stu did it because he was truly in love with Billy.
Okay, so that's
So
more
even if it wasn't reciprocated, I think on more Stu ends, people think Stu was in love with Billy, and that's why he
okay.
did. Yeah.
I was trying to figure out, like, because I've seen that theory floating around, like I said,
Yeah.
TikTok.
Because Stu,
Um,
never really admits to a motive. He's just kind of like peer pressure. I'm far too
and
sensitive.
and listen, as someone who gives in to peer pressure really easily, I get it. If
Mhm.
that's the motive, like I get it. Like I got FOMO worse than anyone else in the world. So yeah,
Billy is
listen,
looking in your eyes with that greasy hair,
let's just go
and those
kill some
pretty depth
people.
looks. Like you would be like, okay.
Let's go kill some people. I'm like, all right, cool. Let's do some drugs. Uh no, I'm just kidding. But yeah, and like this is I think that this is Matthew Lillard at his best because they said like he
The
improved a lot
acting
of this
here
scene
is so good. Yes.
and he's so goofy in it and I hate recently or he says he regrets the performance because of how goofy he is in it. I
No,
think
it's so
it's
iconic. You hit
the
me
the
with the
line,
phone, dick. Like, so
yeah, feeling kind of woozy
cozy here. Yeah. My
and
mom and dad are gonna be so mad at me.
that's the line.
Yeah.
It was improv. It's perfect. And anyway, you think it kind of tussles around back, and she Skeet Ulrich's down. Billy's down at first, so we kind of get her with Matthew Lillard,
Yeah.
and she throws the TV on us. But the TV goes on his head, and seemingly he's out of the picture. It's the last we ever see of him. I'm
Yeah.
gonna circle back to that in a minute. And then this is when we get her real showdown with Billy, just one on
Yeah.
one, and she seemingly wins, and we get a little bit of a jump scare that he goes on top of her, choke him out. But guess what? Gale
Yeah.
Weathers, sharpshooter, saves the
Yeah.
day.
Yeah.
Dead. We're not dead yet. Pops back up. We
Yeah.
reveal that Gale, Randy, and Dewey are all alive.
All live.
One jump scare, bam in the
Boom.
head,
Shot in the head. Yeah.
dead. Now, and then the movie does end, and I do think it's interesting that the movie chooses to end with Gale being more of a redemptive story. Gale Weathers gets, and she's the last person we hear speak.
Yeah, she kind of instead of going with Dewey, she just because I like that comparison with the second movie, how she kind of goes off with Dewey in the second one, but this one
Yeah.
she's still kind of in business mode. So as soon as she gets outside, she gets a microphone and camera. She recounts the whole kind of events.
Have you ever met someone like that?
Who can just shut off everything that just happened and
yeah, like not this dramatic, but I know people that are we're hanging out and we're partying and whatever,
yeah.
and then they'll be like, "So you want to buy a house?"
No.
And they'll have their work hat on,
Yeah.
you're a salesperson, and I'm like, "What? No, it's 1
No.
a.m. and I don't live here.
Yeah.
It's 3 hours away."
Yeah.
So that's what it reminded me of, Gale's
Yeah.
work
It's
mode.
right into business. After somebody tried to kill you, your cameraman is dead. All these people are dead around you, and you're like, time to work.
Yeah. But that's how it ends, and I like that we do get though the So I want to just talk about this movie in the sense of if two to recent don't exist.
Okay.
I like that we get a Die Hard ending of it.
Yeah.
The night goes. There's no sort of big thing. It's just them walking in the distance and Gale doing her thing, and the credits roll.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Does what a So my question though, it's one of the other things. Do you think Stu's dead?
I'd like to think he's not, but I mean, a TV of that era
Oh,
falling on your head.
I got one to the left of me right?
Yeah.
Like in my room because I play video games on it.
Yeah.
And I found that a couple years ago. I found it on the side of the road, and I mean, it's probably a similar TV, like that 20-ish inch,
Yeah.
big for a TV back then. It's so heavy. I remember I picked it up on the side of the road, and I dropped it immediately because of like the weight was a shock.
Yeah.
So because there's a theory floating around that he's gonna
Yeah,
pop
that he's
up
gonna
in
come
the
back like disfigured and kind of be this mastermind behind everything. So, I mean, it's possible, but we saw some sparks and some electricity, and those TVs are huge. So I would think he's completely dead.
and so I just wanted to ask you that because it is a fun
Yeah,
theory,
I
and
would love that. I would love
Matthew
that.
Lillard hams it up to
Yeah.
people when asked.
Yeah.
But yeah, so there are a few things to bring around. Is the franchise as a whole, though, we completely forget about Sydney's father. To the point where I googled it today, and they're like, "Oh, he died from a heart attack, off camera." In
Yeah, so I think in this new one they're killing him off. Or
oh,
in,
so
in four? In
in
four they
they
said he
said
died?
they answered a question, I think,
Okay.
leading to 4. So maybe in the new one they'll retcon it.
Yeah, because I mean, he did appear in 3, and that was kind of like the last time we saw him or
Mm,
really heard of him.
yeah. So if you go to
Um,
the Scream fandom thing,
okay,
it says dead.
okay.
So um, and then yeah, there. I mean, this movie, it's more that this is yeah. There's a whole franchise, and we've spiraled just such things into different pop culture
Y-
that we mentioned.
Yeah.
Um, so I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Oh, I do have to give one. The song from Scream, Red Right Hand. It's such a perfect choice that it's to be this movie in the Killer's song.
Yeah, it's very iconic to this movie. Like I can't hear it and not think. Like I think it's like the theme song for Peaky Blinders, but like I can't not.
It's I see. I always associate it with Dumb and Dumber too
Oh
because it's
yeah.
in like the scene when he's getting the beers in the newspaper, the Rhode Island slut,
Oh yeah.
and you hear it in the background. But it's Scream's song to the
Yeah.
point where we were throwing a Halloween party, and like there's no like Halloween music. We don't know if you
Yeah.
noticed, like
Yeah.
so it's on there, and like Laura was like, what the fuck's this? This isn't. No, we're not putting this on the movie. I'm like, no, it's from
It's from
Scream.
Scream. Everybody will hear it and know Scream. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a 9-minute song.
Yeah.
Um, So yeah, anything like that you that we've missed to talk about, or that you want to bring up, or from this?
Just love the way that it kind of changed the genre. Like it was really like calling out, being aware of all of the things that we've seen up to this point, and that's what made it stand out. Also, just how funny it was. Like it injected a lot of comedy
Hmm.
into the horror. It was like kind of an opposite Ghostbusters, where Ghostbusters I think did more of the comedy in kind of a horror sense. This was horror where the comedy was also peppered in there, and it
Hmm.
was a really great balance. Um, yeah,
Now,
just
I mean, now we can't. Or for a while, yeah, you had the comedy everywhere, and I wanted to go back to a little bit because I do kind of. We have a lot of horror comedies today, but we don't have just enough movies that are horror, that are
yeah.
scary movies that are just people being naturally funny in them.
Yeah.
It's either a horror comedy and it's light on the horror.
Yeah. Like a
Uh,
Dale and Tucker
yeah, and I love those
sequel type
movies.
thing. Yeah.
And um or horror movies are, serious indies of Hereditaries and your
Yeah.
824s, and
Very intense. Yeah.
there's a lane for them, but I also do miss a lane of, I mean, that's why earlier we were talking about Halloween a little bit,
Yeah.
and I like H2O better than the 2018 Halloween.
Me too.
And it's
Yeah.
thank but it's for that reason. It's like I think we do a better job by Halloween H2O trying to be more like Scream
Yeah.
than this super serious. And I like my serious, but this super thing where I find, and this is not this podcast, so apologies listening, but like Jamie, Laurie Strode's depiction more unrealistic, that she's some hoarder, and just because it's filmed grittier.
Yeah.
Like That's just so I kind of hope there's a renaissance of the Scream type movies.
Yeah, and not movies that feel like they're copying Scream, but movies that kind of have that essence but are finding its own voice. So I feel like, I mean, maybe it'll start with this new Scream 5 movie, and because it won't be Wes Craven, so it won't be his inherent voice, but it will be something that kind of respects what he did, but kind of take its own spin on it, because I absolutely loved Ready or Not. So
that was great.
Yeah, so because it's coming from those guys, I think they will bring a fresh voice to this, but also kind of really pay homage to what we loved about this original movie.
Another good recommendation of that camp of recent, I guess it was more the horror comedy, but I did enjoy its tone to it, is Werewolves Within. If anyone has seen it, seen it,
I haven't.
It's with Sam Richardson, who's a comedian, and I forget her name, but the girl from the AT&T commercials.
Oh, okay.
It's a whodunit, but it has a little. It's not scary, but it's not so much a horror comedy. Yeah. It's a fun movie. Yeah, I'm excited for the new Scream to come out. I don't know if I'll do the Spider-Man No Way Home claps in the theaters to it when they pop on screen.
Yeah.
But I'm looking forward to it, and I do real quickly, because I did want to make sure. The release of this movie is really interesting. I know it's something we should talk about at the beginning of our conversation, but this movie becomes first, they didn't give him much of a budget to make the movie. I do have that here. I mean, it grossed 173 million worldwide eventually, but this movie was word of mouth. It came in 4th at the box office.
Yeah.
But it made $6 million. Beavis and Butthead Do America beat it with like 20 million at number 1.
Oh my gosh!
I looked up what was out, and it was like that and like Jerry Maguire. The other things but this was, I mean, 25 years today, a horror movie at Christmas time, and like the reasoning was, well, the crowd that doesn't want to see family-friendly Christmas releases we'll go see
this, and that didn't really happen. Yeah, because like it was word of mouth for me. Like my friend had seen it in the theaters, and by the time I got around to seeing it, like she had told me all about it, and then we rented it.
Yeah, and I think that it's really interesting because it's, and at that time they called it, a dying genre. It was like horror, like that.
Yeah.
Like, people hate these, especially slashers, because they were overplayed and they were all kind of carbon copies of just Friday the 13th. And then a couple other things. This did win MTV Movie Awards Best Picture.
Oh.
And I gotta say though, the nominees are tremendous for this.
Oh, wow.
This is good. The Rock.
Okay.
Scream, Independence Day, Romeo and Juliet, and Jerry Maguire.
Wow, those are that's some big competition right there.
I was having some fun with research today, and I do recommend going to YouTube and watching like the
acceptance
segment, because it's Wes Craven, and like it's like like the whole cast is up there. It's like they all showed up like
so awesome. Probably because like just seeing how this movie didn't do well on first kind of go round, and then to see it winning like anything was kind of a special thing.
It did well, and I think it did well at the Saturn Awards, but I feel like most horror, I feel like if you put a horror movie out, me and you could get nominated for a Saturn Award.
Right.
Also, I do recommend to anyone listening, watch the original trailer if you can find it. It's a really good trailer for a movie. And then the other interesting note is there is an uncut version out there. It's only on Laserdisc. I'm sure someone's ripped it before, but it has extra gore in it. It's the version that wasn't submitted. Like, this movie got an NC-17 originally.
I remember I saw, I think in some behind the scenes stuff, that that cut of Drew Barrymore hanging from the tree, they didn't want that. They wanted to cut that down huge. But Wes Craven lied and said that was the only cut he had. So they were like, okay, well, if that's the only cut you have, then you can use it.
It's insane.
He literally had more takes of it, but he that were milder, but he lied and said that was.
And he's such a sweet man. He probably just charmed him.
Yes.
So yeah, I mean, that's kind of the little fun facts I pulled from it that I failed to mention while we were talking. But yeah, Scream. I think once you see Scream, it changes the way you watch about movies
Yeah.
or
This
horror
definitely made me,
movies.
this made me a horror fan 100%. This movie was kind of like my big kind of kicking off point, which led me into like 90s teen horror, which led me into like more dark kind of horror. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's that
Slashers. This made slashers my favorite type of horror movie. So,
slashes are fun.
yeah.
Anyway, anything else you want to add on to the?
Just another fun fact, they
Yeah,
actually wanted Molly Ringwald to play Sydney, but she was like, I'm a little too old to play a teenager, so she
I'm
didn't want to do that. So I'm kind of always trying to picture how that would
I'm
look.
glad that didn't. I'm glad that
Right?
happened because Nev Campbell, and I didn't really say it in our conversation. No one else could be Sydney,
No,
and
she's my favorite also.
she's doing the
Yeah.
Lord's work here as Sydney.
Yeah.
She plays,
She's
she
tough but
plays.
vulnerable.
Yeah, she's
Yeah.
tough. She's pretty. But she's not. She's a good girl next door, but she's not. They're not overly doing it. Like it's a really, really great final girl. Like I said, like her and Nancy are just have
Yeah.
both.
But like even that part in the when they're attacking her at her house and like they're on the phone and she goes out to go find him, like, what am I doing? And like sticking her finger in her nose, and, like fucking with the killer. Like she is bold enough to do that. Most final girls would be like, already running away. So yeah, they make her really smart and bold and strong, but still very vulnerable that you feel for her and you kind of worry for her, but she's hella tough. Like,
Yeah,
so yeah, she's amazing.
Yeah, they really, that's what we said earlier. They really give a richness to our characters
Yeah,
without
especially
like
female characters.
you
So
don't need two, 3, and 4. I mean, they're fun. I like all of them.
yeah,
Honestly, tonight I would probably watch 2 or 3 or
yeah.
4 later this evening because of our conversation today. But all right, so I'm comfortable with ending this conversation. No, I'm kidding. I'm good with ending. So Jeannine, though, where can the people find you?
You can find me at Jeannine Devine _ on Twitter, Jeannine Devine on Instagram. You can check out the It's a Wonderful podcast feed. We have 3 shows over there. Machine Mondays, where I talk about the Schmoedown. Morgan Hasn't Seen every Wednesday, where I share movies with Morgan he's never seen. And we have the main show, It's a Wonderful Podcast, where we talk those old classic films. So you can find that all places podcasts are found. We also have the It's a Wonderful Podcast YouTube channel, where we do fun discussions. We just did a really fun Spider-Man No Way Home spoiler discussion. We did a fun watch along with Morgan's dad
Nice.
of Home Alone 2 for the holidays. So you can check that out at the It's a Wonderful Podcast YouTube channel. If you want to get any merch for any of my podcasts or any of my artwork, you can find that at my TeePublic shop at g9design.tpublic.com. Or if you want to get any of my art in print form, you can find that at my Big Cartel shop, g9design.bigcartel.com.
Fantastic. You can also find all of those links below in our description. I just have her link tree in there, so have at it. You can find me here at FlyOver State of Fear. You can find me on FlyOver State of Film with the rest of the guys. And you can follow me on Twitter at Chandango1 and follow the FlyOver State of Fear and FlyOver State of Film Twitter handles. That just search. It's fine. All right. Thank you for coming on, Jeannine, and stay frightful. Welcome to FlyOver State of Fear.